Okay, we'll move on with the incubator.
We are set to close on the incubator accelerator property this week. There were two outstanding items that had created some level of issue and concern. The first item was the appropriateness of the existing C2 zoning. Because the incubator accelerator is not a defined, acknowledged use, we felt more comfortable in seeking an opinion from the Central Florida Regional Planning Council. You have a memorandum in your packet that basically says that the incubator accelerator current uses would be acceptable under the existing C2 zoning, but they have also recommended that we seek an I2 or an industrial PUD zoning, which we will, upon board approval, pursue. It'll probably take until April to do that, but in working through that process, it will give us more flexibility for unknown additional uses of the building as we move forward. The second issue related to the building was the circumstances regarding the phase one and the subsequent completion of a phase two. We had a phase one on the building, and it had acknowledged that there were certain in business environmental risk categories related to the property that would need to be defined with a phase two. Unfortunately, the phase one was in the midst of expiring during our due diligence period. So rather than relying on that phase one and going to phase two, we ordered an entirely new phase one. It was completed. I also did a phase two, and you can see the results and the recommendations in the letter, but basically the most salient points were that they found some caulking around some doors that contained some asbestos. They found some lead paint on a handicap painted parking spot in the parking lot, and the cost to remove those were certainly not of any big issue. So we feel like that all of the circumstances regarding environmental conditions related to the building have been resolved. We have at least an existing zoning land use circumstance that will accommodate the incubator accelerator, but we want to move forward, modifying for more flexibility as we move forward. So I don't really know if we have to have board approval, but I'd at least like your acknowledgement, and I'll receive any questions related to this at this time.
Yeah. This project down there would be good as far as the taxes and the water and sewer and all for the city. So, but my question is, taking the cost of the building, and at some point you're gonna have to replace the roof with, I don't know what that would cost. And then all this removal of all this stuff, I mean, it was $13,000 or whatever it is. If you add all that together, could we build a building cheaper than what all this is going to cost us, say at the Commerce Park or somewhere else here in town?
I don't think we could build a 38,000 square foot building for the appraised value of $493,000.
That's 38,000 square feet?
38,000.
It don't look as big as those the department built. It's 20,000.
Well, it's pretty big.
Well, that's another question. I mean, it is an old building. It's got old air conditioners in it. Actually, those will probably have to be replaced.
The air conditioners were all replaced after Hurricane Charlie. The building has been basically idle. There are some other considerations related to that building. If we are in a position to acquire it and put it to good use, and we can fix an eyesore in the community, there can be public relations or advertising or just cleaning up the community attributes to acquiring the property that we wouldn't obtain if we simply built a building in the Commerce Park. I can't tell you today that it is exactly the best thing from a building standpoint, but if we're really truly looking at all of the impacts of economic development, I would say acquiring this building and using it as an incubator accelerator is an appropriate use. The real hard part with this building is not necessarily getting the building and retrofitting it and fixing the physical deficiencies. The real hard part is going to be finding entrepreneurs that are appropriate to go into the building and try to compel them to increase the quality of their business and the volume of their business in order to create more jobs.
Well, I haven't, got into that, thinking about that too much. I'm just looking at the cost compared to the other cost. But if there is a concern about the building being, basically being used or full all the time, maybe we need to do a survey or something before we get into this. I mean, we'd hate for have one person in there and three quarters of the building not being used.
Okay.
I mean, that's just a thought that, is there going to be enough in-county people to do this thing? I mean, do we have any idea? We don't. How would you do a survey? I don't even know how you would do one to see if there's people that's thinking about, well, yeah, I'd like to go in there and develop my, my avocado strain or something. I mean, I don't know. Just thinking.
Good thoughts.
That's terrible, isn't it?
Good thoughts.
Me thinking.
Well, you've got two businesses
Yes.
at this point.
Yeah, so when they do their thing and become successful, and I believe they will, and they move out, then what?
Hopefully there will be additional entrepreneurs that
I
are
agree.
motivated to move into the building, and we can find ways to assist them to grow them. And hopefully we'll do it with good selection processes.
Yeah, and I agree, and I'd like to see it be very successful, but I'm just curious of what's next. I mean, do we have anybody that's coming into the office and saying, hey, I'd like to be a part of this, or I'd like to start developing something, or?
We have, but my last statement to the EDA was that I would like to get the fill line done.
Right.
Because it really serves as an incubator for a specific type of business development.
Right.
And we have an architect who is working on the right ways to divide the building, but also to leave some flexibility. The fire people also have their opinions about dividing the building and having flexibility. It's a whole different set of circumstances. There are some other code circumstances with the building, mainly related to handicap parking and the restroom facilities that will have to be modified, which we've known from day one. So this is our incubator in our community. It is something we are trying to use to overcome the very problem you identify. You sit here on this board and you say, well, I don't even know if we have people that would be willing to move into a facility like this.
That's right.
By its nature, by its definition, it is an incubator and then an accelerator to solve that problem. And we have money that is appropriated for that purpose. And if we do a good job with the money, we will be a success. If we fail, then I guess we'll get our heads chopped off. I don't know what else happens.
Well, and that's what I'm thinking, Bill, is there anything that we can do ahead of going through all this $500,000 or $1 million, whatever it's gonna cost, to make sure that there is a better possibility of it succeeding than failing?
The fill line itself has, I think, by far the greatest potential to utilize a large portion of that business. There have been other users that have an interest in the building, but when you try to put incompatible uses, especially with food production, you have to be careful how they're situated there. And my position has been that we need to focus on the fill line. We need to fully understand all of the certifications and regulations that are related to the fill line and give it a shot. Let's see just exactly how large a market there is related to the fill line. Focus on that with that building, and if it works, then the problems that you pointed out won't necessarily exist any longer. If that doesn't work, then we'll have to look at adapting the building to other compatible uses that don't conflict with the objectives we'd like to have accomplished with the fill line.
Do we know what businesses we're gonna be limited to down there compared to if this building was built, say, at the Commerce Park?
If we do the I-2 PUD, or the IPUD, the industrial PUD, I don't think we will have any limitations on the building. The limitations that we have will be identified in the planned unit development inside the walls of the building.
Okay, so we could build airboats down there and rev them up.
Well, I think you could. Again, we're trying to do something that's compatible with the neighborhood and the city, something that fixes that blighted property. And, you know, we don't have to do that.
I agree, Bill, I agree it'd be a great thing for the city, but I just wanna make sure, try to make sure, and I know it's not 100% thing, is that we're going in the right direction at the right spot. You know, are we spending a bunch of money on something that's really not at the right location as far as, you know, I think you said we can do anything we want to there, so that'll be fine. You know?
As we define it in the planned unit development.
Yeah, and, you know, do we compare the cost of what all this is gonna cost compared to a brand new building at the park where we already have land? But that's all. I'm just, I think we just need to look forward and kind of talk about this and have a debate about this and see if this is really the right direction for the money in the right spot, maybe, my concern.
I think, have we already discussed this and voted unanimously and moved forward? That
Yeah.
we're not arguing the spot, we're talking about the
Well, why don't you
changes
speak
that-
up then and tell us why you love that spot down there?
I just think it's great for the city of Wauchula.
Well, I said
also,
that.
for
I
us
disagree
to-
with that.
Yeah, I don't, and I think there are other people that would, use it besides the two that you were talking about. I know there's been some talk. I mean, I can't say specifically because you never know what might come about, but, I think this board as a whole is not just to fill the Commerce Park. It would do things to benefit the community as a whole. So the city of Wauchula is our county seat, right?
So we're gonna do this just where they can have the tax
No.
money and the water and sewer, so I think we need to talk about it.
But we already voted to close and purchase that building, didn't we? So I mean, now's not
Well,
the time to
but that's not,
discuss what
but
we're
the
gonna
building, they may
do.
not sell the building to us. Apparently you weren't at the last EDA meeting.
I'm not on the EDA.
No, but you can come as a citizen. Where does that stand about the buying of the building?
That's what I'm telling you. These were the last two issues that we needed to resolve, and they have been resolved. And I'm just telling you that we intend on closing on the building this week at the appraised value of $493,000. As you recall, we had proffered a $510,000 price for the building or appraised value, whichever was lower. And I'm acknowledging that the hurdles related to closing have been overcome, and we're gonna close and move forward.
Well, I think sometimes we move kind of fast on some of these things. And if you wanna just move on fast, then I'm for it.
Well, if we stop now, we're gonna lose our $25,000 binder.
Well, I didn't know till the other day that we'd put a $25,000 binder on
Well,
this
that's
thing.
normal and usual circumstances. We could have gotten it back had we not overcome these issues related to closing.
Well, okay.
I have something to add regarding the testing of airboats. I volunteer if that comes about. If the county purchases a sound level meter that's traceable to the National Bureau of Standards, which makes it accurate, I'll make the sound measurements and develop a plan for free as a contribution to the IDA board.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Question. Bill, the south portion of the property, what are our plans there?
paved parking lot portion.
I mean, and then there's some that's not.
There's 3.6 acres, I believe, Mike, on the property. It's not configured as it has an irregular configuration in that the Kentucky Fried Chicken is kind of an out parcel on the property. But honestly, 3.6 acres with northbound and southbound access on US 17 is, in my opinion, a very large portion of the existing value of the property. And we have not done anything there. The only thing that I have looked at that I believe would be a good thing for the building is we have done a preliminary topo, and we could make the existing building dock height because of the existing drainage system on the property exists about, oh my goodness, I want to say it's about 50 inches below the floor of the building. I am trying to find out if we can make those modifications without increasing or decreasing the impervious area of the property. It's grandfathered in from the standpoint of water management district rules. But if we make modifications, we may have to modify and put retention on the property. I can't tell you if that circumstance is going to occur, but there's a very real possibility it will happen. But the Regional Planning Council told me that it wouldn't, but I believe if we modify the existing impervious area, paved area, by increasing or decreasing, we could in fact have to get a surface water management permit. If that's the case, then the very south portion of that property needs to be used for retention.
But are we gonna need all that parking?
Well, if we end up with any trucking or distribution on the property, I think we probably would have to have it. Semis take up a pretty large area, and I wouldn't think we'd want to dispose of it. One other thing about the property is it is contiguous to the only piece of industrial property in the city of Wauchula. Everything to the north of it, all of the farmers market property is already zoned industrial. So we believe by changing it to industrial, it just makes that entire industrial area more appropriate because it's all contiguous. Touching. Does that answer your question?
Any other questions or comments from the board?
Madam Chair, I just want to say I follow Donald's concern, but when it comes to this type of development incubator, I don't believe you'd have the interest in it if it wasn't in town. I don't, if you put something like this out, I tried to put it out in the industrial park, I don't know that it would, I'm not saying it's going to be a success, it remains to be seen, but I think this has a greater chance for success being in the city limits and on a main highway.
Thank you for your comments. Bill, are you looking for approval for something, or is this just a part of your update?
It's just an update from previous discussion. I don't think we need any approval. I suppose relative to the minutes, I would like the minutes, Madam Chairman, to reflect that the director has noticed the board that we intend on closing on the property.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Bellflower, we won't be taking comments unless
It's not a comment. I would just like Bill to define fill line for me. I'm not sure what you're talking about there.
A fill line is a production process for primarily food or cosmetic types of manufacturing. It is adaptable to a multiple number of uses. As you may recall, Pam, we had a application through the EDA that is in the honey business, and they have a line of cosmetics that they need a production facility to expand their business. We want to use the volume of their business and the volume of their honey to initiate this fill line. We have other interest with other parties that have either recipes from salsa to other forms of cosmetics that will be able to utilize this facility on a contractual basis. And that is the nature of what we'd like to incubate in this facility.
Production line.
It's a fill line production line.
Okay, we're gonna go ahead and move forward with, the Clifton Larson Allen engagement letter.
Mike, did you come in the door?
Yeah.
Welcome. This letter was placed on the agenda at the last meeting, and several had asked that we leave it for, or postpone it to the next meeting, so it is back here today. And I've asked Mike to come and address any items that need to be addressed.
Yeah, I got questions for him.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mike. Mike, I've known you and trusted you for a long time. Correct?
We've known each other for a long time, and I hope you trusted me.
Well, I have. And I've only known for you that you do audits.
Well, that's the only thing that you and I have
Right,
interacted
right.
about is audits, but. Yeah,
So my question is, I've read this thing. In my opinion, why would you put your integrity at risk to do something like this?
What this is in the profession, it's called agreed upon procedures. And basically, this was suggested procedures, but it's basically you telling me what you want me to try to verify. And these items came directly out of the contract that you signed with Continuum. And so what we've been asked to do was to verify that the terms of the contract are being met.
Well, we've been told that we're gonna do an audit. This is not an audit.
This is not an audit, and I've never called it an audit. It's called agreed upon procedures.
Yeah, I'd like to read this paragraph here. You know, do we know how far back these agreed upon procedures is going, how far back we're going? Is it 30 days or 60 days or 90 days or 2 years?
Well, some of that just all depends on when whatever the step is that we're testing occurred.
Well, you would know that, what we're testing.
Right, well,
What are we testing?
we're testing compliance with the terms of the contract. So if, say for example, if somebody was recruited to come into a data center, you know, that might have happened 30 days ago, it might have happened 6 months ago, I don't know. We won't know until we get in there.
Have we had an audit back for the last 2 years? Have we had audits on Continuum for 12 and 13 or not? Have we have?
Well, let me back up and just clarify the terminology. This is not an audit. And no, we have not done an audit.
Well, why? Well, I wonder why we're not doing an audit. Why are we just doing a agreed upon procedures? Well, let me read this anyway. I've got to get this off my chest because I think that we need to have an audit for 2012 and 2013 when you're talking about giving somebody $7.5 million and we're not willing to do a full-fledged audit. That concerns me. So I'm going to read this. Because, do what?
Where you at on
Page 16, second paragraph from the bottom.
Okay.
Because the agreed upon procedures listed in the attached schedule do not constitute an examination, audit, or review, we will not express an opinion or provide any assurance on the review of contract compliances or the Hardee County Industrial Development Authority's financial statements or any elements, accounts, or items thereof. Also, we will not express an opinion or provide any assurance on the effectiveness of the Hardee County Industrial Development Authority's internal control over financial reporting or any part thereof. In addition, we have no obligation to perform any procedures beyond those listed in the attached schedule. So that tells me that if you find something wrong in there, you're not going to tell us.
No, I think
Well-
what that says is, as it relates to the IDA. I mean, they're going to be doing a review of Continuum Labs. They're not going to be giving an opinion on the IDA as far as any audits of the IDA's management of the funds. 'Cause
Okay.
those things come with our.
All right, well then you explain to me why we're not doing an audit.
What, I guess for clarification, when you say why we're not doing an audit,
Yes.
define what you mean by an audit. And what is it that you would like to see?
An audit is something a lot different than this.
Okay, well, give me some examples, like what is it that you want to see?
Well, it's an audit like the county commissioners do every year. It's like the workforce board does. It's an audit. The word audit is a lot different of going through the books than a agreed upon procedures, correct?
That's absolutely correct. There's several types of assurance engagements that you can hire a CPA to do. This is agreed upon procedures. Basically, it says, we want you to look at these specific items and just report back what you found on those items.
We're telling you what to do.
Right. You're
An
telling us
audit, then you do what you need to do.
An audit goes all the way from examining the internal controls of an entity all the way through determining that the financial statements are fairly stated in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. The purpose of this is just to verify compliance with the contract. It's not to audit their financial statements. Now, if you would like us to audit the financial statements, and if that's allowed by the agreement, then that's certainly your prerogative, but that's not the purpose of this agreement.
Well, I certainly like to have an audit for the last 2 years.
Could you
$7.5 million,
explain for me
we don't know where it's
what a
going.
forensic audit is?
A forensic audit
Yes.
is if you believe that there's things that have occurred in the past that may be irregularities, and then you would bring a professional in to go and do certain procedures to see if there was any fraud or any irregularities that occurred in the past. And it's different procedures and different scope than the financial statement audit.
Thank you. Madam Chair.
But no, you're exactly right. This is not an audit. This is a different type of engagement.
Do we have the right, under the agreement, to perform an audit of Continuum Labs? Because that would have to be stated in the agreement that we signed with them.
Well, I guess that's what I'm having some difficulty understanding where you're coming from, Donald, because when we established the contract with Continuum Labs, we defined what we expected to see for the $7.25 million that they were granted over that period of time. So we're engaging Clifton Larson Allen to help us determine if that contract was met. So as a workforce board member, you know that Clifton Larson Allen does work for Heartland Workforce. If we had a company, a private company, that we funded for workforce training and development, where would you draw the line in what you would expect that company to provide in some sort of an audit with Clifton Larson Allen? I mean, there has to be some boundary of what you expect. We have a contract that states what we expect them to perform for the money that was given to them. So where exactly is the boundary? What is it that you want to see in an audit of their records?
Well, first place, I can't believe you're saying this. When you give somebody $7.5 million in cash money for 2 years, and you as a board don't want to know where it's going, you just want to have some agreed upon procedures, but you don't want to know where the money's going, where every penny is going, if it's being spent properly, or you don't want to know that? Why would we have an agreement not to audit their books when we're giving them $7.5 million of free cash money every month?
I don't think that anyone has
For 2
said.
years.
I don't think that anyone has stated that we don't know where the money is going. And just like everyone else is entitled to their opinion, I'm also entitled to mine.
Sure you are.
So, the point being, this agreement was made 3 years ago.
Not to audit them.
It wasn't included in the
Is that right?
contract.
We agreed not to do an audit of their books. Is that what we did as a board?
No, I think that there is sufficient language in the contract, which is the only document we have with Continuum to really pursue the detail related to what has happened in the past with the money. It will define what Mike can do with this agreed to procedures. You know, when I first introduced this to you, I told you that I would love to call it an audit, but it's really technically not an audit. But I think as far as looking at their books and making sure that the books comply with the presentations that have been made to the board, we have every prerogative within the contract to do that. But Mike can only use the contract to do these agreed to procedures. And he has tried to take the contract to write this document for us, for us to go into this company and do what is technically called an audit. I don't.
It's not an audit.
We just, it's not, I don't know whether it's legally or
Well,
contractually allowable.
My understanding of what you asked us to do was in response to the Auditor General's operational audit, and which one of their points had to do with monitoring compliance with the contracts. And my understanding is that's what this is trying to accomplish, is to monitor compliance with the contract you have with Continuum, as opposed to a full financial statement audit of the company.
Well, is there anything in the contract that says we cannot do an audit for that for 2012 and 2013?
Define. We're back to audit.
Well, Mike can give us an example of audit.
Well, I just did, it's starting from examining the internal controls, planning it, assessing the risk, hitting the risk areas, and then performing procedures to make sure that the financial statements are fairly stated in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. That's the essence of a financial statement audit.
I can only say this to you. The concerns that you have repeatedly expressed are shared and well received on both sides. I don't think there's anyone that wants to get finished with this process and still leave doubt in certain areas. But until we get into it, I'm not certain what the processes will be, but I think you will find that even Mr. Bond will be extremely interested in complying to take away the doubt or confusion or whatever other issues exist related to how this money has been spent. That's the whole reason we're going through this process.
Well, why would we waste money doing this when we can do an audit?
Because it's well, number one, the Auditor General has said that we need to make sure that there is compliance with the contract. So that's the agreed to procedures. As to the detail of that, I mean, we will do everything we can, and there will be cooperation from both sides to give you all of the necessary reports so that you are hopefully satisfied that the money has been spent appropriately. I don't know what else to do at this point.
An audit.
If we did an audit, that wouldn't necessarily show compliance with the contract, though, correct? It would show compliance with GAAP, but it wouldn't necessarily show compliance with this contract.
We are required to review compliance that could have a material effect on the financial statements. And I don't know if there's a provision here that you can recoup money, but in a lot of cases, if there's non-compliance with certain requirements, then it could cost money. It would affect the financial statements. So, to answer your question, yes, we do look at compliance with significant contracts and agreements.
Okay.
Mike, if we go through the process with agreed to procedures and the results leave areas that we decide we need further investigation, what remedies would you have to offer at that point?
Well, the whole idea behind this type of an engagement is we just tell you what we found. You tell us what you want us to look at, we tell you what we found, and then I guess later on you can discuss what you want to do to remedy that. But the whole idea behind an agreed upon procedures is that the contract says you're supposed to do this, We look at it, they either didn't do it or they did do it, and that's what we report.
If we do these procedures and then we decide at some later point that we want to, and we find we have the right to do a full audit, and we ask for that, is the work that you've done here superfluous? Is it redone, or will it contribute to reducing the cost of the audit?
A lot of this would not be something we would do in a typical audit. Like in an audit, we wouldn't really be that concerned if Continuum tried to attract businesses to come into a data center.
Okay,
here in town.
that's what I was asking you a minute ago.
Yeah.
If the purpose of this is different than an audit,
Yes.
maybe I didn't word it correctly.
Yes, the purpose of this
Is
is
different than an audit.
just
So
to
it's
look
achieving-
at compliance.
This
contract
achieves a
with-
separate goal.
Yes, this is just
From
looking
audit.
at contract compliance. Financial statement audit would be look at the company as a whole, look at their financial statements and report on whether the financial statements are fairly stated in accordance with generally accepted accounting
So
principles.
if we performed an audit, we may still not know that they have satisfied the terms of the contract that we have with them.
I mean,
So in order to get a whole picture, we really need to do both, it seems to me like.
You could
I don't
build
see-
that,
I
you
don't
could
see the
build
one
that
as
in.
exclusive of the other.
I mean, we could build that into the scope if you want us to do an audit. We could, that's not something you would normally do in a financial statement audit. A lot of these procedures, some of them you would, but a lot of them you wouldn't. That could be built into the scope.
Well, I'm gonna make a motion that we do a full audit and do this compliance thing too.
I guess,
Before we get into that, I thought, was it 2 meetings ago or 3 that we voted to do this?
No,
No.
we didn't.
We didn't.
I presented it, and I think Donald asked that we hold it back.
Yeah, because the problem I have sometimes with this is I get this agenda packet the morning you get it, come here and sit in here. That's when I get this agenda packet.
Why?
This one here,
Why don't you get it when we get it?
is it mailed to you?
I get an email.
My God, you think I'm computer literate enough to do that?
I would hope so.
Well, let me say that any other board gets their packets a week ahead of time.
Donald, we have repeatedly, time and time again, and said it in every board meeting for the last at least 4 months, that we would offer to print it out for you, and you could come and pick it up, so you didn't have to pull it up.
I do that sometimes, but last month I didn't have the opportunity to do it. This month I did it.
Sorry.
I do it. Sometimes I can't do it.
Called to you.
Why don't you just let me talk?
The agenda came out Friday.
And I went down there and got, but sometimes if I walk in here and pick this thing up in here, I don't have time to go through it and look at it. And that's what happened last month, and that's why I asked to postpone it.
But this issue was on the agenda last month. Nothing's changed.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was. But I sat here and try to do the meeting and then try to read all this stuff too. I can't do that. I'm not as smart as Jimmy C is. And that's why I asked for it to be postponed. Now, you can like it or not, but that's why I asked it to be postponed. And I have made a motion.
Well, I guess one consideration, and Mr. Bond could answer this better than I can, because I don't know anything about the company right now, is Continuum may do more than just this project. So I don't know, if you do a full financial statement audit, that would cover the whole company. And maybe a legal issue, I don't know. I don't know if you have the right to go in and look at every aspect of the company. I'm just throwing that out there as a consideration. I don't know one way or the other.
Well, answer me this then. The books of Continuum Labs, we're giving them $300,000 a month of free cash money. Should those books be kept at the EDO office, or they keep them?
That's really, I would think that would be built into the contract. If the contract is silent, I would imagine that they would be kept at the corporate office then.
Okay, there's no state statutes or anything when you're giving out grant money like this that the books be kept in a certain place or anything?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Does the contract allow us to do an audit?
The contract, I think, gives us sufficient latitude to look at their books.
Look at the books, let's do an audit.
Well, looking at the books is probably sufficient. I mean, it's semantical, but I think that we do have the prerogative to look at their books. And as that's where I'm a bit confused, because the agreed to procedures to look for compliance with the contract are one thing, but the contract does allow us to have access to the manner and areas in which they have spent money, and I fully believe that to be produced. Now, whether or not what they produce is ultimately audited, I don't really know how to do that, because I'm not sure what our legal position is there. I personally would like, for transparency and accountability purposes, to have a full accounting of where the money has been spent. But there may be some areas that we have to stop because we simply don't have the legal prerogative to go further. And I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to penetrate their right to privacy. But I mean, from my perspective, we certainly want to produce just as much as we possibly can, and we will.
Part of this contract was looking at, well, you could make it whatever you want to, but we put 25% of the total draws and verify it back to supporting documentation as far as how the money's spent. So that is built into these agreed upon procedures. But it doesn't go as far as a full-fledged audit would go.
Ken, are you aware of any reason why contractually there could not be a full audit?
Here's what I'm seeing from my seat. I think I'm hearing, if I'm understanding, Donald, your position is the thing that you're not seeing that you want in the agreed upon procedures would be 100% of the draw requests verified back against the supporting documentation.
Right.
And instead we say 25% in the agreed upon procedure. That can be 100.
You can make.
I'm hearing him say that can say we're going to verify 100% of the dollars requested by draw and dispersed against the supporting documentation to determine if it's in compliance with the contract or not.
If
That's what I'm hearing him say. I don't think you guys are as far apart as you sound like. You're saying audit, he's saying agreed upon procedures, but if the goal of the audit is to verify 100% of the expenditures back to supporting documentation for contract compliance, we can make that happen by changing paragraph 8 of the agreed upon procedures to say 100%.
If Mike would agree that would be an audit, then yes.
Here's the
He's not
issue
gonna call
I see,
it
Jim.
an audit, no matter how.
Here's the
you
issue
state
I
it.
see, Jim.
Well, I don't know why people's fighting this audit.
With the use of the
That's
word.
beyond me.
Let me try to answer that. The use of the word audit, to give you an example, if we had an interstate running through here, Donald, which is, I believe, the decisive factor in Amazon's decision to locate in Polk County, if we had that sort of infrastructure here and you guys decided to fund Amazon for $2 million, are you going to audit Amazon's financial statements with everything they've got, go from front to back? That's what you're talking about.
No, we're going to audit the $2 million that we give them.
Well, that's an agreed upon procedure for the $2 million. That's not an audit of Amazon's financial statements. It would include every single thing they do, no matter where it's located. That's the difference.
But what I'm asking is that we audit the money we give them, not what they got from investors or things like that.
And I'm thinking that that's what 100% of the draw requests verified by supporting documentation and contract compliance does.
If that's an audit,
It's
I'll support
semantics.
that.
You're using the word audit, but an audit is an audit of a complete financial statement of the entire operation of a company, which in different
I'll let Mike
examples.
give me the definition of what we need to do with Continuum Labs to make it an audit, and that's what my motion is.
But no matter how he defines it, we're not calling it an audit, because we're not looking at their complete financials. We're looking at their financials as it relates to our contract and our agreement in the 7.25 that we funded them.
I don't care what you call it, Vanessa, as long as we do an audit.
I think. May I say something? An audit
if they financed a car at GMAC, an audit would look at that loan. That has nothing to do with us.
I agree.
That's what an audit does.
What I said
But
was,
if he has, let me finish,
all right,
please.
okay, I'm sorry.
An audit would say, if he had his house loan and he had a mortgage against his house for the company, which has nothing to do with us, but an audit would go into those, it checks everything about the company, not just what we're related to. And I don't think we have any interest in things that he does, that the company's done outside of the industrial
I
development.
agree with that.
Donald, I think a lot of this is like Ken said, semantics, because in the CPA profession, audit has a very specific meaning and has very specific requirements for things to be done. And we can do what you're asking us to do, but I can't, as a professional, call it an audit, because it's not an audit as it's defined in my profession. It's probably an audit as you think of one, but it's not, I can't call it an audit. Because an audit means I do specific things that probably wouldn't be done in this one item. You know, for example, in here, it doesn't say that we're gonna go analyze their internal controls, do walkthroughs, verify that all their controls are working as documented. We're not gonna go assess risk for the whole organization and identify what the risk areas are. You're asking us to look at some specific transactions. And so in my profession, I can't call it an audit. But I can do, I think, what you're asking me to do.
That's all I'm asking. Do you think changing the 25% to 100% would solve that problem?
That's